Hey, welcome back to Inside the Mindshift. I'm your host, A.G. McCallum, author of Mindshift and The Stranger Inside the Walls. In our last episode, we stepped into the psychology of fear and touched on some real-life ties, connecting the dots between Marley and Andy in the book The Stranger Inside the Walls. Today, we'll be stepping directly into one of the darkest corners of my nonfiction adaptation, The Mindshift, What Makes a Killer a Killer. It's an educational book based off of some of the classes I've taken in university, informed research, and personal opinion. We'll dive deep into the psychological and developmental milestones that shaped who these individuals became, long before their crimes ever surfaced. The cases I researched include a range of historical significant serial killers and violent offenders, including Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, Richard Ramirez, Jeffrey Dahmer, Eileen Wuornos, Dorothea Puente, Jane Topin, Bill Guinness, Karla Homolka, Albert Fish, and Mark Twitchell. I selected these individuals because they represented diverse backgrounds, motives, victim profiles, and psychological patterns. Together, they provide a broad spectrum of criminal behavior that helps us illustrate how serial offenders develop, escalate, and interact with their environments. Across these cases, I examined several key elements: early life experiences and trauma, which includes childhood abuse, neglect, head injuries, and environmental instability; psychological and behavior patterns such as antisocial traits, psychopathy, mental illness, delusions, and desires; motivation and triggers, including financial gain, revenge, delusion-based reasoning, and thrill-seeking; public impact and media influence, especially in high-profile cases like Bundy, Ramirez, and Homolka. By researching these offenders of different eras, genders, and psychological profiles, I gained a deeper understanding of how each crime progressed and how various factors such as biological, environmental, social, and psychological shape their behaviors. I often get asked, what kind of opinions do I have about certain criminals? One case that comes to mind right away is Ed Gein. I know he's been glorified in the news, past and present, including in a Netflix series. But his case stands out because he was misunderstood and grew up in an environment that was strict and kept him from living a real life. He had a mental illness that went untreated and undiagnosed, and without support, he fell deeper into instinct and delusion, ultimately leading to what he did. I'm not giving him an excuse, nor do I deny the things that he did were wrong. But if you truly dissect his life and upbringing, it was generally sad. He lived in a time where you wouldn't dare to be different, and his family's religion was used to keep him in line in a very negative way, rather than the most positive, supporting ways religion can help people. If you look at all these cases in my book, many of their upbringings influence their life choices. Some use anger in the wrong ways, some felt relief in the worst ways, and some never had the chance to confront why they did what they did. Take Ted Bundy, for example. He was intelligent, educated, and even married with a child. You often have to wonder what triggered him to do the things that he did, while living a life that appeared to be normal, but ultimately sprinkled with the unimaginable. In completing my book, in the end, I truly believe that if we raise our children in loving, supportive homes, they grow up to be the best version of themselves into adulthood. But if we raise them in negative environments, we ultimately pay for those decisions, and it can be devastating. Someone will grow up fighting mental health challenges, some will become isolated. In rare cases, children who are affected negatively may resort to fighting and committing crimes. In the end, we're all human, and sometimes individuals will do things that will change their lives for the worst. In the end, we need to start fostering a world filled with love, empathy, and compassion, and definitely not built on hostility, hatred, and battling with each other. Now, I'm going to take this time to read my book's introduction to hopefully inspire you to take a look beyond the headlines and into the way these individuals grew up and what affected them the most. Every killer begins as a human being, before the headlines, before the courtroom, before the fear they inspire. There is a mind shaped by biology, scarred by trauma, and molded by the society around it. To understand what makes a killer, we must shift our perspective from the act itself to the forces that drive it. Violence is not born in nothingness. It is the collision of inner demons and outer pressures, of choices made and chances lost. This book is not about glorifying horror, but about peeling back the layers of psychology, neuroscience, and social influence to reveal the complex truth. Killers are made, not born, and their stories are warnings written in silence. If you get a chance to pick up my book, Mindshift, let me know how you liked it in a review. Hopefully this book has opened your eyes to a different kind of lens to look at them, instead of judging them from the start. And again, we need to foster a world with love, empathy, and compassion. I also get asked the question, what inspired me to write this type of book? I was inspired to write this type of book because during one of my heaviest semesters in university, we were taught about child development, environmental influences, and how the brain is wired under different conditions, such as exposure to drugs, trauma, and other factors. As I learned these concepts, I became deeply intrigued by how the human brain works and began linking them to some of the murderers we've come in contact with over the years. I wanted to put together a book that could translate how they grew up and how those early experiences influenced their adulthood. I was also curious about how each of their upbringing shaped who they became and how they acted. Family influenced some, others were shaped by instinct, environment, or the chaos of their childhoods. My book also touches on the families who were affected and how they continue to cope with what happened to their loved ones. My intent for this book was to educate, simply to look at these individuals through a different lens. And I truly hope my book was able to do just that. I know many people were objective or negative about this book coming out. But I can tell you, I'm not done yet. This will be a 3-book series that will lead into the aftermath and the mental state of the individuals after incarceration. I just wanted to put a different view on this subject, because in the end, we're human. We all make mistakes that we can't change. In our next episode, we'll have a special guest speaker. She'll be introducing us to criminology, what parts stood out to her, and which areas she found the hardest to endure. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you here next Friday, same time. This is A.G. McCallum, and you've been listening to Inside the Mindshift. Remember, the mind hides more than it reveals.